Ma'am, Anjali ma'am, shall we start?
Okay.
Sir, Jaymohan sir?
Yeah,
Jaymohan,
yes. Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Fine.
okay.
It's fine with me.
So, a very good morning to all of you. And today we have Professor Dr. Jaymohan sir in the first session of the last day of this faculty development program. And I'm very pleased to introduce Professor Dr. Jaymohan sir to this session. He obtained his MTech degree from NITK Surathkal in the year 1996 and PhD also from the National Institute of Technology, Karnataka, Surathkal in the year 2014. Sir has about 36 years of professional experience and he has served the institutions LBS College of Engineering Kasaragod and LBS Institute of Technology for Women at various administrative levels, and he is currently working as as principal LBS Institute of Technology for Women, Pujapura, Thiruvananthapuram. His research areas include reinforced soil and foundation engineering. Sir has published more than 75 research papers in peer-reviewed journals, national and international conferences. He is an active structural and geotechnical engineering consultant for several state and central government organizations. And Sir has been associated with many professional bodies like Indian Geotechnical Society, Indian Society for Technical Education, Indian Society for Remote Sensing, International Geosynthetic Society India chapter, then member of Initiative for Geotechnical Research and Innovation Practices, IGRIP of IIT Gandhinagar, and a member of the International Technical Committee on Tropical Residual Soils of the International Society of Soil Mechanics and Geotechnical Engineering. And he has delivered expert talks at IITs and various government and private engineering colleges. And with this brief introduction, I invite Professor Dr. Jaymohan sir to deliver an expert talk on geotechnical investigation for infrastructure projects. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Anjali, for the kind words. So, good morning, all of you. Good morning, my dear friends, colleagues, and dear participants. I'm indeed very glad to be with you, and I'm very happy to share with you some of my experiences in this field of geotechnical engineering. I will share my screen right away. Is the PPT visible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Oh, okay, fine. So, geotechnical investigation for infrastructure projects, that is the theme which I have chosen. So, regarding for the conditions under earthquake, regarding ground motion and liquefaction and this liquefaction potential and all, my colleague Professor Jaya must have talked to you in detail in the previous day. So I will share some other aspects of it. So this is an overview of a presentation. I'll talk a few words about geotechnical investigation initially. Then I'll be sharing you some of experiences in the in these projects regarding one municipal shopping complex at Panmanagra Panchayat and some buildings and some canals of various parts of Kerala. Now, so all of our faculty members, so you'll be familiar with this term, geotechnical investigation. So this is performed by civil engineers or geotech engineers, basically to obtain information about the properties of soil and rock at site. This information is required for various purposes, for planning the construction activities, for designing the foundation, and if it is a soil structure, to design it and to monitor it, and to analyze the safety of existing structures. So for various reasons, this is being performed. Fundamentally, what we require is we want to know about the various layers of solid site. We need to know the properties. And if it is an earthquake-prone area, we also have to determine the dynamic properties like coefficient, elastic uniform compression, so etc. etc. So usually the most common practice is we drill boreholes, we take samples at various levels and from all layers beneath, and we do some tests and we try to find out properties. And if the project is on a large scale, sometimes we may have to also go for geophysical methods of investigations as well. Now coming to the case studies, I'll start with project. So this is in a district called Kollam in Kerala. There is so this is a rural area. There is a Grama Panchayat. It's a village panchayat called Panmana. So they were planning to construct a municipal shopping complex. So we were the total consultants. So we did the surveying part, the initial survey, and the architecture design, geotechnical investigation, and even the structure design. So everything was done by our civil engineering department. So this is the typical floor plan. So for a building of this plan area, as per IS provisions, we had to take 3 boreholes. So I will. So this is the elevation of this building. So we took 3 boreholes up to a depth of 20 meters. We did rotary boring. And you know, of course, I will share with you the borehole details. Here the soil was sandy in nature. When we drill holes in a sandy soil, you know, that collapses. So to stabilize the sides of the borehole, we use a solution called with bentonite. Bentonite is a type of clay having a mineral called sodium mount morillonite. That is a mineral in bentonite. So we mix bentonite with water. I will show you some photographs. We mix bentonite with water to form a solution which will be circulated inside the borehole. So this is the site, and these are my colleagues, Professor Arun and Sreet, and these are my students. Can you see the movement of my cursor? Is the movement of cursor visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh,
It's
fine,
visible.
fine. So here you can see this is the drill rod. So these equipments are mounted on a tripod. Basically, you know, it is a gear drive. So you can see here there is a main engine, and on the side there is a single gear. From that gear there are 4 belt drives. With 4 belt drives, 4 other gears are performed. And basically all the 4 other gears, one is for this pump. Can you see this pump here? This pump is for circulating drilling mud. Drilling mud is a solution of water and bentonite. As is it visible, this person here? So this is the location of borehole, and this is the drill rod. At the end there is a cutting bit, and this cutting bit will be rotated, and simultaneously that will lift and drop. All the loose materials will come out through the solution. Can you see a solution flowing, a muddy water, a gray water? So is it visible clearly?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So this is a solution of bentonite. Actually, the color is about yellowish brown, but when they get mixed up with local soil, the color changes accordingly. So this is the borehole. So this is a small pit, and here the solution of bentonite will be stored, and from it will be pumped that will pump to pump into the drilling rod, and it will be circulated. So this is the chopping bit for rotary boring. So this chopping bit or drilling bit which we use for rotary boring. Whereas when we have to take rock samples, we need a diamond bit. We need a double core diamond barrel we use. Now this is the typical bore log. We see here. What I'll be focusing is in this lecture. Once you get a soil investigation report, from the soil investigation report, how do you choose the type of foundation? How do you choose the depth at which foundation is to be placed? And how do you find out the bearing capacity? So these are the 3 basic aspects which I'll be sharing in this lecture. That is, once a bore log or a borehole data is given to you, how do you decide the type of foundation, and how do you decide at what depth the foundation must be placed, and how do you decide the bearing capacity? These are the 3 things which I'll be sharing. So this is the typical borehole bore log. See, are these letters legible? Are they readable to you? Can you read this? Are they big enough?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so as you can see, the topsoil, so basically they are sandy in nature, light gray, fine silty sand, reddish brown medium sand, yellowish brown clay sand. Of course, see this has got a content of clay. This is lateritic clay sand. So predominantly it is sand. This also clay sand, major portion is sand. Now, and you see the depth of water table, it is 0.6 meter. That is at this level, where you see my cursor, at this level it is water table. And you see the standard penetration resistance value is 7, 2, 10, 9, and 4. So from here onwards, from 9 meter onwards, it is 14, 36, 18. If you go down, again 25, 30, more than 50, etc., etc. So to be precise, till a depth of 9 meter, up to a depth of about 9 meter, soil is not 9 meter, up to a depth of 7.5 meter. That is N value is 3 here. From 9 meter onwards, it has improved. Up to a depth of 7.5 meter, the soil is loose and it is sandy soil, predominantly sandy soil. It is below water table. So in the previous class, I hope Professor Jaya might have talked to you about liquefaction. See, has she mentioned liquefaction? Did she mention about liquefaction in Professor Jaya's lecture?
No, sir, it is not mentioned.
See, liquefaction is, oh, sorry, I also did not include that in my slide. See, liquefaction, see, when ground vibrates, that is during an earthquake, when I think I will use my whiteboard for a minute. I will share my, 1 second, I'll share my whiteboard. Is the whiteboard visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you know the classic equation for shear strength. S is equal to C plus sigma dash tan phi, where C is cohesion and sigma dash is the effective stress. Sigma dash is effective stress. Now for sandy soils, we take C as 0. The part of cohesion is 0. Therefore, shear strength is sigma dash into tan phi. And we know sigma dash is effective stress, which is total stress minus pore water pressure. So this is sigma minus U tan phi. Now what happens is, you know, during earthquake, when the ground moves, as the, see, these are the soil particles. These are the soil particles. In between soil particles, we have pore water. So especially here in this side, it is below water table. So as the ground moves, as the soil particles move, the water pressure shoots up, suddenly shoots up. And this water pressure may even become more than sigma. So when this water pressure becomes equal to the total stress, shear strength becomes 0. So when shear strength becomes 0, the soil momentarily soil behaves like a liquid, and whatever structure rests on the soil will simply sink down. Whatever structure rests on soil will simply sink down. Sometimes the soil will come up as a fountain and down. So this is the major cause. This is the major cause of failure during earthquakes. So if in your site, when that is, say especially faculty members who are doing consultancy as well, if you see loose fine sand below water table, and if that area is seismically active, or if it is prone to earthquake, you must be careful. That means that soil is capable of, or there is a risk of liquefaction. We call it as liquefaction potential. That is, we have to find its density. we had to find the dry density or gamma d. We had to find its void ratio. If the void ratio is less than, sorry, if the void, not less than, if the soil is loose and if the void ratio is more than a critical void ratio, if the void ratio is more than a critical void ratio, then it is liable for liquefaction. There is a chance of liquefaction. So in such cases, we have to go for compaction. Such cases, we have to go for compaction. We must increase the density so that void ratio becomes less than the critical void ratio. So that is a process. So we did, I go back to PPT. So here in the top layers up to about 7.5 meter, the soil was loose. There was a possibility of liquefaction. Of course, that location was not seismically very active, but you know, nowadays the geological conditions are changing. Places which are not seismically active, nowadays they are active. Many places, especially in our state of Kerala, many places which were, because you know, from my childhood, I have never experienced any tremors, earthquakes, but in the recent past, even in my place, in Tiruvandhuram also, we have small shocks and vibrations are being recorded at times. So these geological conditions are changing. So if there are possibilities of ground vibration, then this liquefaction potential has to be reduced. We must go for compaction. So here also we went for compaction. I'll explain the process of compaction which we designed here. Because here now we have to compact up to this depth. Up to this 7.5 meter depth is to be compacted. So we designed a system of compaction piles. Now analysis of soil data, recommendation for foundation design. So first of all, it is required to densify the soil to a dry density of 1.4 ton per meter cube. So approximately to 14 kilonewton, because the present density we measured, we got about hardly about 12 kilonewton per meter. We want to increase it to 14. So then once you densify, then we can place a foundation at a level of 1.2 meter. This is the method of densification. Anyway, I'll explain using the whiteboard. Is the whiteboard visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will erase this. So we use sand compaction piles. That is, we used a system of sand compaction piles. So suppose if it is suppose this is the plan area of the foundation. If this is the plan area, suppose if we call as B and B, then say this much area. So then this much area we have to, so this is B plus 2 meter. This also B plus 2 meter. 1 meter offset either ways. but in this project, these areas are overlapping. So we had to combat almost entire area. Because these areas of adjacent footings are overlapping, so almost entire area is compacted. So what we do is, suppose if this is the area to be compacted, we will start from the middle. So I entered the plan. So this is the top view. We will start from the middle and we will work outwards in a radial fashion. Always when you go for compaction piles, we must start from the middle and we must work outwards in a radial fashion. If you come inwards, suppose if you do the reverse procedure, if you initially compact the external edges, and if you work inwards, as you reach inwards, the soil will become so dense, you won't be able to drive in your compaction piles. Now I will see the method of compaction piles. Suppose, say this is the ground level. Now I am drawing section. This is section. First, we will put a steel cone. We will put a steel cone on the surface. Above the steel cone, we will put a hollow steel pipe. We will put a hollow steel pipe. Pipe will be having joints at intervals of 1 meter. So these are joints. Then this pipe, we will drive it down. This pipe, we will drive it down using a drop hammer. So when you drive down this pipe, like this, when you drive down this pipe, what happens is it will push the soil radially outwards. This pipe will push the soil radially outwards, thereby compacting the surrounding soils. So these are the joints in the pipe. Now next step is we will pour in a mixture of 6 mm aggregate plus sand in the ratio 2:1. So the infill material is a mixture of 6 mm aggregates and sand in the ratio 2:1. First, we will fill it up. We will just pour it down. We will pour it down up to this level, right? And then we will lift up this pipe. We will lift up this pipe. I will draw a figure. We will lift up this pipe by 50 centimeter. Now it will look like this. We will lift up this pipe by 50 centimeter. Now this is the cone. And this is the sand. Class. Now this is the sand like this. Now this much sand is outside this pipe. Now what we do is using a steel rod. Using a steel rod from above, we will compact it. Manually we will move it up and down. Manually we will move it up and down in the soil. We will compact it. So what will happen now? Now this soil will bulge outwards. So this compaction using a steel rod must be done until refusal, until this zone compact further. Next, after that compaction, we will fill soil up to this level. We will again lift up the pipe some more. We will remove the top piece. Again, we will compact. So finally, what we get is we will be getting a compacted soil mass like this. This will be driven throughout the entire area at a spacing of 30 centimeter. And this depth is, so in this project we took as 7.5 meter. So that is up to the loose sand zone. So is the PPT visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So up to the 7.5 meter depth, the entire area was compacted like that, so that we reduce the void ratio or we increase the density, so that bearing capacity, the static bearing capacity improved. Also, the possibility of liquefaction was eliminated. Then, so this is mentioned in this. The process of densification is mentioned in this PPT. So whatever I said, I have explained it in detail. You can refer. This PPT will be shared. So this PPT will be shared with you. Then once after that, bearing capacity was determined, and we got as based on the density and the shear parameters measured, we got the bearing capacity 150 kilonewton per meter square. The allowable bearing pressure. Allowable bearing pressure have to be computed based on two criteria. One is based on shear strength. You have to refer IS 6403, Indian Standard 6403. That is a code for bearing capacity. Then we have to check for settlement by using IS code 8009. 8009, check for, so find out the bearing pressure for the permissible settlement. Whichever is lower, we will take as allowable bearing pressure. So please note, we will find out bearing capacity as per IS Indian Standard 6403. 6403 to find out the safe bearing capacity. Then to find out the safe settlement pressure. That is bearing pressure based on settlement criteria. ERTF IS 8009. Part 1 is for shallow foundation, part 2 is for deep foundation. Then you find both the values, take the minimum one as allowable bearing pressure. That is a procedure to find out this value. And once after densification was over, we wanted to verify, we wanted to check the amount of densification occurred. Now this is myself. So in the surface we check density using a sand replacement cone. See, if you want to check the density at the lower portions, again you have to do standard penetration test, but our client was not able to spend that money. So these are my students, these are my colleagues, and these are my students of our institution. This is my colleague, Mr. Udayan. He's a staff member in our Geotech lab. These two are my students. In almost all our projects, we involve our students also. And we got a value higher than 14 ton per meter cube, or 14 kilonewton per meter cube. And these are the footings. Even though we had recommended individual square footings, since the areas were overlapping, we found the strip footings as more economical. So for each rows of column, we provided strip footing. So can you see? So these are strip footings. And this is a typical cross section of the footing. Typical cross section of the strip footing. Very structural design as well. Now, next project is in, so that was at Thiruvananthapuram. That was a building for literacy mission. So you see, sometimes, you know, there is a basic difference between, you know, when we do these practical works. The first work was given to us by a government department called Local Self-Government Department. So the people with whom we discuss are engineers. Now this work, it is a government project. Government had given this project to an architect. It's a famous architect in Kerala. The name of the company is called as Habitat Group, headed by a very famous architect. You know, this architect sometimes, you know, they fail to understand the severity of civil engineering problems. Sometimes they will say, whatever you design, whatever solution you give, that must be within this much amount of money. The budget of that, you know, that system, or the estimate for the system should not exceed so much amount of money. This is the problem which we face when you know, sometimes when you work with architects, especially when it comes to complicated geotechnical problems. Sometimes within the money they give, we may not be able to do it. Anyway, I will show you next. I got plenty of examples like that. Anyway, in this lecture, I will show you two of those where we had to fight with the architect and all. So you see here, this literacy mission building, that was a 4-story building, 4-storied frame structure. So in this location, the topsoil was again loose sand. So we drilled 3 boreholes up to bedrock level. We drilled 3 boreholes up to bedrock level. I'll show you the data. You see here again the top soil was loose sand. We had filled up soil up to about up to 20 centimeter, then up to 6 meter. Up to about 4 meter. We have very loose sand. Then from 5 meter, then from 5 to approximately, you see at 5, the density has started increasing. But from about 8 to about 8 to 12.5. But 4.5 meter, there's a thick layer of sand, very thick layer of sand. N values was more than 50. After that, again, that becomes loose. As you can see the curve, again, that becomes loose. Finally, in the bottom, we reach rock. So, in a nutshell, in between about hardly 5 meter thick, there is a layer of very dense sand. Above that is loose sand, below loose sand. Finally, when you come to about 27 meter, we get a very dense gray to medium coarse sand. That was weather rock, and below we had hard rock. So this is the condition. So quite obviously, for a 4-storied public building, that's a frame structure, we will recommend a pile foundation. The pile foundation resting in this dense sand. Either pile foundation resting in this dense sand, or a pile foundation resting on the hard rock below the layer of dense sand. So that is the natural choice for any engineer. But in this project, what happened? The architect was adamant. He is saying, see, if you go for pile foundation, this entire project will be cancelled, because the budget allocated by the government for this project is only a few crores of rupees, hardly about 3 or 4 crores of rupees. See, a pile foundation. Now, if you provide pile foundation, this will be about, I think about 40 or 50 piles will be there. Piles of length about 30 meter. So a 30 meter long pile. A 30 meter long pile, how much it may cost? Participants, any idea? Can you put in chat box? A 30, I think I see a question here. Mr. Samib Abbas has asked a question, the depth of sand pile. So the depth of sand pile was 7.5 meter. Depth of sand pile was 7.5 meter in that loose zone. Now, participants, do you have any idea? Say a 30 meter long, say 30, now I am chatting in the chat box, I am typing in the chat box, 30 meter long RCC pile, say approximately about, say 60 centimeter diameter. How much will be the cost? Any participants, any idea?
3 lakhs, sir?
No. It will be, see, anyway, 30 meter, this will definitely cost more than about 6 lakh. Because, in our campus, we had a hostel building where the length of pile was about 7 or 8 meter. That construction was in 2016 or something like that. There, each pile cost more than 2 lakh rupees. About a pile having length 8 meter, each pile, individual pile costed about 2 lakh rupees. So definitely 30 meter long pile, that will definitely that will cost more than roughly between 6 and 8 lakh rupees will be the cost of each pile. So 50 piles of cost 8 lakh, 4 crore rupees. 4 crore rupees will go into the pile foundation alone. So the architect was saying, for this building, the entire budget, I think, this project, I think we did somewhere in 2017, for 4 years back. If I remember correct, the total budget was hardly about, I think, 7 crore, something like that. So in that budget, 4 crore for pile foundation, this, see, whatever it is, if it is a technical necessity, then we had to revise the estimate. We may have to go for additional financial sanction. There is no other go. But this architect was very adamant. He said no. He said a simple no for the pile foundation. Sorry. Then, So I gave them two alternatives. So two possibilities. One is circular footing at 6.3 meter or pile which is resting on the jointed soft rock. Yeah, that hard rock, that is the rock beneath the sand layer, was not very hard. They're highly jointed. So you see, the idea was either shallow foundation at this level. Suppose if you go for shallow foundation at the top level, then this much area again we have to combat, because this area is loose fine sand. There are possibilities of liquefaction. Either we have to combat the entire area, and we have to, as before, as the previous project, either we have to combat the entire area up to this depth, and we have to place foundation here. Otherwise, we can directly place a foundation over the dense soil, because this was about approximately 5 meter thick dense sand. So you must place the foundation in such a way that the entire pressure bulb must be contained within this dense sand layer. The pressure bulb must not go beneath the sand layer. So you must, we recommended keeping that at a depth of 6.3 meter. So when you work out approximately the diameter, and we recommended circular foundation. I'll explain the reason later. So the approximate diameter of circular foundation came into about 1.5 meter. So from 6 meter, the depth of pressure bulb, that is approximately twice the width of foundation. So from 6 meter, further 3 meter. So the pressure bulb will be contained within a depth of 9 meter. So whereas the dense sand extends up to about 13 meter, so that was safe. Only thing you see, excavating for 6 meter. Excavating for 6 meter is a problem, because water table is at a depth of 1.2 meter. This is sandy soil that highly permeable. There will be lot of water coming in. You have to do lot of dewatering. When you do lot of dewatering, the adjacent structures, because this was within Trivandrum city, there are a lot of houses nearby. When you go for massive dewatering and all, then that will cause cracks in the surrounding houses. That will lead to another issues as well. So we recommended, I'll show you the recommendation. Yeah, this is the data of the rock. You see the rock. So these are the rock pieces. You see RQD was 50, 59, and RQD means it is rock quality designation. It was very less and it was very poor. So this was disintegrated rock. See if you see for soft rock and weathered rock, there is a design procedure as per IS 2911. See, for weathered rock and soft rock, we can design pile foundation resting on it by using IS 2911. Whereas for hard rock, you have to refer IS 14593. Anyway, we'll see it later. So if it is weathered rock, there is a procedure given in IS 2911 based on the standard penetration resistance value. But usually in weathered rock and all, it is difficult to do standard penetration test, because the value will be very, very high. The equipment may get damaged easily. So in case of weathered rock and all, we will take it as dense sand with angle of shear resistance 5 more than 40 degree. That's a common practice. Anyway, we'll see it in detail later. So for we can see for I said circular footings, the method is method of excavation. You must lower RCC well rings. Do you know nowadays when you make an open well, we will excavate using concrete rings. So I hope all of you have seen a concrete well. I hope all of you have seen that. While installing a well, we use concrete rings. We will put rings one by one, and inside we'll excavate. So here, to prevent the collapse of soil and to prevent the large-scale sheet piling and all, each foundation recommended, you must excavate for foundation as you excavate for a well up to a depth of 6.3 meter, and there you can have a circular footing. You must then, over that, you must concrete a column, RCC column. Then you must fill that, then you must fill that space using the same sanded site. So that was recommendation. And option 2, and the bearing capacity was 200 km square. Option 2 was pile foundation. Option 2 was pile foundation. But, construction like this is very difficult, especially, after setting out the foundation points, when you install this well and or sometimes it may tilt, shift and or, then the construction will be difficult. So finally, the architect went for an additional estimate and they installed piles. Later, during the real construction, they installed piles. I gave the bearing capacity of piles also as well. So here I get 2 options, both because actually the best option, technical option is pile foundation. And the problem is, you see, when people apply for funding to government, based on their based on the functional requirement, they will design the building, and without doing soil investigation, they'll assume a foundation. With that, they make an estimate, they make a budget, they submit it to government. Government will give some funds. Only after getting the funds, they will go for soil investigation. At that time, if they see an adverse soil condition, then the problem is the amount they received, that will become insufficient. Then they have to go for reverse estimate. So this happens. This happens in many government projects. That is a common practice. Now this is another project for KTDC. KTDC means Kerala Tourism Development Corporation. So, so they had a project of resorts at a place called Muzhuppilangadi. Muzhuppilangadi is in North Kerala, near Kannur. It is a famous, see, what is this Muzhuppilangadi famous for? Those participants from Kerala, can you answer? What is this Muzhuppilangadi famous for? Especially, I don't know whether how many of you know that. Participants from Kerala, can you put it in chat box? Yeah, of course. So Mr. Jerison James had typed it. So there's a drive-in beach. So that beach is very famous. So so there we have a drive-in beach at Muzhuppilangadi. So here, this Kerala Tourism Development Corporation, they wanted to construct and 1 5-star hotel. So 5-star hotel is a 7-story structure, and all the resorts are single-story. Now, it's a huge land. It's a very vast land. I think that area was about more than 5 acres. 5 acres is more than about approximately 2.5 hectares. So here we took total 10 boreholes, 8 boreholes, 1 each in each resort. So these resorts are single story. So for the boreholes in the resort, we drilled up to 10 meter. And the 5-star hotel was, that was a 7-story building. So in the location of 5-star hotel, we took 2 boreholes. Those boreholes were drilled up to bedrock level. Now, this is my colleague, Professor Arun. These 2 are my students. So this is a very vast area. See this area, this piece of land, tourism department purchased it about I think 15 years back. They just built a compound wall. They will just build a compound wall. The entire 5 acres. See, this is myself. So you can see my students, both are tired, both are completely exhausted after walking through the entire area. Now the problem is, see, within this 5 acres, different buildings are different location. First, we have to do setting out. This area was full of vegetation. So this is my colleague with a big knife. He is cutting this plants and because for surveying and for doing setting out, we have to mark the points where we have to take boreholes. So for doing setting out or surveying, we need a clear line of sight. So this line of sight he is clearing, and this area was full of snakes because This area was, nobody went there for the past 15 years. And we are going and it's full of snakes. And we saw the skin of snakes and all. Now, see here, these are the bore logs of so which we drilled in the location of resorts up to 10 meter. Here also we saw similar. From 2 meter to 4.5 meter, it was dense. Above and below was loose. So these are single story buildings, resorts. Here we placed foundation at a depth of 1.7 meter. So at the 1.7 meter, we placed foundation so that the entire pressure bulb falls within the highly dense zone. That was done here. And for the 5-star hotel, so this is the top zone. Then it becomes loose. That comes down. And at a depth of 21 meter, we get so we get weathered rock, and then below weathered rock we got hard rock. So this was the data for the 5-star hotel. Now see, this is how we record the details of rock. See, this is borehole 9, borehole 10. So borehole 1 to 8 was in the location of resorts, and borehole 9 and 10 was in the location of 5-star hotel. So for example, from a depth of 23.33 to 24.1 meter, that is for a length of 80 centimeter, the total length of sample obtained was 0, because that rock was in a powdered form. So number of pieces, there is no number of pieces. Rock recovery ratio 0%, rock quality designation 0%. So classification based on IS 13365. This is rock mass classification. This IS code for rock mass classification, IS 13365. This is very poor. Then from 24.1 to 26.1 meter, the depth of boring was 200 centimeter, 2 meter. We got the length of sample as 147. So 147 into 100 by 200. So percentage 147 of 200 is 73.5%. That is a rock recovery ratio. And there were 9 pieces. So you see, all the length of 9 pieces added together will come to 147. 147 divided by 200 multiplied by, so as a percentage, that is 73.5. Now from this, we will consider only pieces longer than 10 centimeters. So these 2 pieces, 8 and 7, are discarded. These are length of these pieces of length 8 and 7 centimeter discarded. We will consider only pieces of length more than 10 centimeter. So only they are considered, their length is added up, that divided by 200 as a percentage is the RQD, rock quality designation, that is 66. So as for IS 13365, that was fair. Accordingly, say this is how we classify this rock mass. Then we found out the unconfined compressive strength of this rock. So and we will cut this rock samples into pieces. We will measure the diameter, height, weight. Based on that, we will find their mass density. We will find their unconfined compressive strength in the laboratory using UTM. We will find out the unconfined compressive strength. Now, based on the unconfined compressive strength, we will calculate the bearing capacity of pile resting on rock. This is as per IS 14593. This is a different equation. This is as per IS 14593. That is the guidelines for piles resting in rock. So this is the Excel sheet for that. For this, so these are some parameters, NJ, ND, based on the spacing of joints, etc. There are 2 parameters, alpha and B. LS is the socket length of pile inside the rock layer. So you have a D is the diameter of pile. So this is the LS by D ratio. So based on the unconfined compressive strength, see, we got various values in that. So here in this pile, in borehole location 9, in the bottom portion it was 77.22. In borehole location 10, bottom portion was 119. So 77 and 119. So for design purpose, we took a value of 60. was taken for design, and accordingly for piles of various diameter, bearing capacity was computed. So, yeah, so this is analysis for two-story building. We'll go for shallow foundation at so this was allowed bearing pressure 14 per square meter. For 7-story building, we'll go for pile foundation, and this is the safe vertical load, and this is the lateral load, this is the uplift load. Lateral load and lateral load we have to calculate based on IS 2911. Uplift load based on the buoyant weight. If the pile is below water table, based on the buoyant weight and based on the friction on sides, we have to calculate uplift load. So that is how these were calculated. So till now we were discussing about building projects. Now we will discuss about two major projects which involved lot of complications. Now this is a design of canal protection system for the third reach of Vadagara Mahi Canal. So those are not from Kerala. Vadagara is a place in the northern part of Kerala. Both Vadagara and Mahi. And in our state in Kerala, it's a small state. It is very densely populated. So, so to ease the transport through roads and all, our government is very keen on developing the inland navigation system so that this cargo transport can be through water. So actually this started long back. So when I search in the internet for the Vadagara Mahi Canal, so those who know Malayalam, this is so it was a dream which started 40 years back, and due to various reasons, this project could not be materialized because of mainly due to difficult soil conditions and due to the problems with due to the restrictions in budget and all. This project could not take off. But it is now the work is progressing at a very fast pace. So this was a part of Vision Vadagara 2025. This canal passes through 3 assembly constituencies called Kuttiyadi, Nadapuram and Vadagara. And the total length of this, so a intrinsic network of canals for water transport is being developed throughout the state of Kerala, because Kerala is blessed with a lot of water bodies. And this particular canal, Vadagara Mahi Canal, is having a length of about 17.6 kilometers, and it is connected to the West Coast Canal, which runs throughout the length of Kerala, right from south to north, from Thiruvananthapuram to up to Kasaragod. This joins the West Coast Canal. The feasibility study was done by a research organization called NATPAC. It is National Transportation Planning and Research Center, something like that, NATPAC. As per their feasibility study, up to 16.6% of total goods traffic by road can be diverted through water, so that the traffic system becomes more easy and the goods can be transported at a more economical rate. The cost of transportation will come down. These are the purposes for developing the inland navigation system. But our issue, so this Vadagara Mahi Canal connects the Kuttiyadi River in south and Mahi River in north. So these are the geographical aspects. The funding for this has been sanctioned the 13th Financial Commission of Kerala State. Now the problem, the work in the entire 17.6 kilometer stretch is going on in full swing, except for one stretch. A stretch between chainage 458.47 to 459.27, hardly 750 meter or 3/4 of a kilometer. That stretch has got very treacherous soil conditions. So their soil is very loose and the banks are very high. They are collapsible soil or dispersive soil, which as water flows, the soil gets carried away. That collapses easily. You see, the height of canal bank goes up to 24 meters Can you imagine 24, the depth of canal, that is the design depth is up to 24 meter in certain localities, and the soil is very loose. They're not able to do the dredging work. As they dredge, the sites collapse and there are houses above. I'll show some photographs. So this is the existing condition of Vadagara Mahi Canal in this particular reach, the reach which I was mentioning. This is myself and this is my colleague, Dr. Balan. So he is also a consultant. See, when you do big projects and all, you should not do it alone. You must associate with one more consultant, because especially when you do complicated projects, you must not do alone, because so both can discuss with each other and do. And this person is Engineer Sushil Kumar. He is Executive Engineer of Inland Navigation in Vadagara Division. This is the existing condition of the canal. Now, you see, I'll show you a figure. See, these are the cross section in various chain edges. Please listen. See, you see visible clearly. Can you see this black dotted line? Below there's a pink dotted line. Below there's a green line. Below there's a red dotted line. Are they clearly visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, this black dotted line was the initial condition. They started excavating. After the first phase of excavation, they reached this pink dotted line. Then the third phase is this green line. Now the condition is as per green line. So what you see in this photograph, is shown in this green line. This is the present condition, right? Now to reach the designed bed level, you must reach this red line. So that is for the inland, because see, for the navigation purpose, for the designed boats to travel or designed smaller ships to travel, we require a minimum depth of water. That depth of water is called as draft. That is in their terminology, they call as draft. So to get that minimum draft and to get the minimum longitudinal slope, in this particular chain edge, 4-foot number 15, we have to dredge it further to this level. That is, we have to increase the width, we have to remove this soil, we have to increase this width, we have to increase the depth. And please remember, here, see, is the movement of my cursor visible? Can you see the movement of my cursor? Is it visible? Movement of my cursor? Okay. Please see, in this location, there are houses. In this location, there are houses. I'll show the photograph. See, are they visible to you in this photograph? Can you see these houses? Can you see these houses? Yeah. Now see here, these houses are here. And this green line is the present condition. This we have to further excavate down, further widen it to reach this red line level. But when we reach the green level itself, you can see here the soil is collapsing. I'll show you a bigger photograph. See, here the soil started collapsing. Can you see these collapsed portions? You see, here is collapsed, and it is collapsed here also. And these are the houses. Behind the trees, you can see houses. That is, when they reach this green level itself, these areas, soil is collapsing. Soil is collapsible in nature. So, when you further excavate till the red line, here if soil collapses, these houses will be in danger. Definitely, these houses will collapse into the canal. So, the local people started agitating. See, is it visible clearly, this collapse? So here, while excavating, the soil started collapsing. So all these people who are residing on the banks, they went for a strike. They stopped the work because they understood that this will endanger the safety of their house. Now that 750-meter work has been stalled. So government approached several agencies, but some of them gave costly solutions. Some of them did not give solution. They came to us, and so you can see this is the nature of soil. It's very loose. So we went for a soil investigation. This was our equipment. Again, rotary boring here. So we took 6 boreholes. So this is the plan of the area. This is a bridge across the river, across the canal. So this is right bank. This is left bank. 2 boreholes at the top of left bank. 2 boreholes at the top of right bank. 1 borehole in the mid height. Mid height means, I will show in the cross section, somewhere here. 1 borehole in the mid height of left bank, 1 borehole in the mid height of right bank. So like that, we took 6 boreholes. This is a typical borehole data. In the top, we have a very thick, very dense laterite layer. As you can see in this photograph as well, you can see this is a very dense laterite. Very dense laterite, yeah, as you see here. That extends up to about 4.5 meters. Then that becomes very quite loose. And finally, when it reaches about 23 meters, that becomes hard again. And below that, we get rock. So we got rock of very good quality. You can see we got RQD 75% and all. Now, what was the design criteria? The design criteria means, you see, this is the existing water level. Existing water level means, now this is the green line. This is the present excavated level. Somewhere this level we have water. See this, when you excavate, we can easily give a big RCC retaining wall, and above we can give a slope. We can go for the slope protection with the Koya geosynthetic. That is, below we can give RCC retaining wall, and we can give a stable slope which we can protect by providing Koya geosynthetic. All this can be done. But what is the problem with the RCC retaining wall? Why we cannot provide that? Because we have to do a lot of dewatering. Because here they're full of water. If you go for a cast in situ construction, we may have to go, especially RCC retaining wall, we have to do a lot of dewatering. When you do dewatering through the soil, lot of water will start seeping in, and the seepage will definitely cause collapse of the soil, which will endanger the life and property of people residing on these banks. So our criteria was, we had to go for, hello? So anyway, our design criteria given by the client was, we can only do underwater concreting. We cannot go for dewatering. So that is the criteria. So even though with this height and all, the RCC retaining wall, of counterfort type was possible, we didn't go for that. So initially the suggestion was, to provide a diaphragm wall made of secant piles. I will go to the whiteboard once again. So we suggested secant piles. See, secant piles are piles driven close to each other, like this. There are 2 methods, either like this. Suppose if you want to prevent the drainage of soil outwards, we will drive soft piles like this. Alternatively, we will drive soft piles at a spacing. Then we will say these soft piles will not be reinforced. These will be unreinforced. Then we will drive hard piles of M35 or M40, drilling through the soft piles like this. So these are 2 methods of driving secant piles. Anyway, I'll go to PPT. Yeah. So here this is the cross section of secant piles. See, here we had bedrock. This is a layer of weathered rock. We will drill at least about 6 meters in the bedrock using diamond bit, and this is the concrete secant pile. We will so we'll be concreting secant pile up to this level. Then we will concrete a longitudinal beam, and this is a dead man. So this is an anchor. So this will act like an anchored sheet pile wall. So the whiteboard. This will structurally this will act like a anchored concrete sheet pile wall. I think some book call us anchored bulkheads. Maybe like an anchored bulkhead. It's under name. That is, to be more simple. Sorry. It will. Here, this is soil, and this is soil. This is the anchor. So this is a simple mechanism. So this was the initial proposal, and in the second stage also a similar small structure, then a stable slope, and to prevent erosion and all, here the surface will be protected by coir geosynthetic, and will plant grass. Then later, and here the passive pressure generated in this locality is the most important. So the existing soil will be removed, and they will be filled in geobags. These are geobags. I'll write it. Geobag. Those are geobags. So the local soil will be filled in geobags that will be stacked perfectly in front of this the diaphragm wall or secant pile, so that this will be a solid mass which will give a good amount of passive pressure. So this was one suggestion. And in such cases, main thing is we have to check stability. So stability you have to check numerically using finite element analysis. So we used Plaxis 3D. So this is the discretized model in Plaxis 3D. The diaphragm wall was modeled using a plate element. So here the parameter which we give is EA, that is elastic axial stiffness. See, that is for a plate element in finite element analysis. The main design parameter which you have to give, one is EA, which is elastic axial stiffness. And other one is EI, which is the flexural rigidity. So based on the cross-sectional properties, you have to calculate, and that you have to give as input data, and then after that, you see, and see, these were anchors. So these are anchors, and then now so you can see the load here. So class then now to find out the interaction between soil and plate, these are the interface elements. These light green lines, these vertical lines you see, these are called as interface elements. This is the deformed model, and see, the maximum deformation was about 7 centimeters. But yeah, this is the. But when I put geobags, in front of that that secant pile, the deformation reduced to, you can see, 0.039. So the deformation reduced to 4 centimeters. 4 centimeters. These are so this is the stress distribution and deformation distribution. Factor safety, this is a factor safety I got, as you can see, a 2.6. I got factor safety for the slope. But later we want to go for a more sustainable option, because the problem then this solution had some practical problems. After installing this deadman and all, this anchor and all, again when we go for excavation or pile driving here, this may disturb the system. So then we revised our proposal. In the top surface, we planned a system of gabions. I hope all of you know gabions. Inside a wire mesh, we will fill in rubble. So that's called gabions. So this too was modeled in the finite element analysis with gabions. So anchored secant pile at lower level and gabion wall at higher level. So this was modeled. This is a more bigger view. This is the discretized model. After discretization, this is now. So this is the anchor and this is the gabions. These are the different soil layers. This is the hard rock layer. This is the embedment depth of pile into the hard rock layer. And the maximum deformation we got about 5.5 centimeter. So that was accepted. Now this is the bend moment diagram in the secant pile. Maximum bend moment was about 2,271 kilonewton meter per meter length. And this is shear force diagram, and this is the maximum pull in the tie rod. Factor safety we got 2.4. Anyway, this was accepted. So this is the final cross section. I think these dimensions are not very clear in this. Now, then we had to devise a system of construction. So initially, now you see, this is the part below hard rock. This is the part above hard rock. Initially, below hard rock, see this is the plan. Below hard rock, circular piles of 1.2 meter diameter at a spacing of 2 meter will be concreted. Initially, as a first phase, that is this portion below the hard rock. Circular piles of 1.2 meter diameter at a spacing of 2 meter will be drilled and concreted, and above that, the pile will above that a casing will be kept, a casing of rectangular cross section, with the keys that will be kept, and the bottom reinforcement that will extend into the top portion by sufficient anchorage length. Then these alternates will be concreted separately. Then the in-between portion also, casing will be kept. Everywhere the concreting will be using a trimming. So like this, we can form a continuous diaphragm wall. So that is how it has been designed. Now the construction has started. It is progressing. Now, similarly, we had another project which was a bit complicated like this. This was a reinforced soil wall with gabion facing for a slope failure site again at Thiruvananthapuram in a place called Kumarapuram. So here you see, I'll use the whiteboard. Just 1 second. First, I will draw in the whiteboard. I will tell you what happened. There was a slope failure occurred in a place called Kumarapuram in Thiruvananthapuram, and see, there in a place called Kumarapuram, there was a sloping terrain like this. And in the top, almost near here, there's a compound wall. One elderly couple was staying in a very beautiful house, a beautifully designed house by a famous architect called Laurie Baker. This house has got a lot of arches and very beautiful features and all. So one fine day, the owner of this stretch just excavates. he excavates like this. It is about more than about 11 or 12 meters. So he excavates like this. So in this house, there's an elderly couple. Their two daughters are US. When the neighbors started excavating for his own construction, these people are happy. They thought that now they have a good neighbor. Now they have somebody as a neighbor. But suddenly in a monsoon, this compound wall collapsed. This soil some more collapsed in a monsoon, and this compound wall collapsed. That happened during a monsoon. So during a monsoon, that compound wall collapsed. Class 11, I'll call you later. So then this bottom person understood that there's a problem. So what he did was, he excavated this much land and he constructed a big RCC cantilever retaining wall like this, so that it is safe. This is having a height of about 6 meters. 6 meter height and about 50 meter. And this is about 50 meter long. So what happened? See, you know, the problem is, see, people will think about only bearing capacity. How about stability? Do you think this is stable? Because now there is a deep cut in front of that. Then in the next monsoon, the entire retaining wall rotated. This retaining wall fell down. This retaining wall fell. This entire soil collapsed. This house got cut into 2 pieces. This portion also collapsed. Now what is remaining is like this. The collapsed retaining wall here, the remains of the house like this. And I see in the elderly couple, actually before this incident, the husband passed away earlier. Now the old lady, she is still living there. This is the condition of the house. Anyway, now I'll show you. Now this is the retaining wall. This was 6 meter high, 50 meter long, very thick RCC retaining wall. Now it has collapsed. I'll show you. So this is the house. This is the excavation area. Now they are temporarily supported using gunny bags, temporarily, to prevent further collapse. Now this is the retaining wall. You can see the wall. See, now this is the retaining wall. See, as you can see, it is completely broken. That's completely broken. It is completely, see, so you can see the reinforcement and all. And yeah, these are my students. This is myself. This is my colleague, Professor Sruthi. This is my former colleague, Professor Jasim. These are our students. For every consultants project, our students also accompany us. And now this is the condition. You can see the retaining wall, how it has broken. The retaining wall. So I show some more photographs. It was a beautiful house, very long house. Now you can see this. So now this is the failure surface. Can you see this? This is the failure surface. So this is some filled up soil there. This is the starting portion of the RCC retaining wall which collapsed. Can you see this? So this is the RCC retaining wall. See, this retaining wall extended from here till here. From here till here. So that extended. This is the old lady. That see, when I say old lady, she is not just an old lady. Her husband was an IAS officer. Her husband was an IAS officer. He was the commissioner of Kerala Planning Board. See, if such things can happen to an IAS officer, to a family of an IAS officer, you can imagine. So these are my students when we visited there. Now, when you try to solve a problem, very first thing is you must analyze the geometry. The first thing is geometry first. So first we surveyed using total station. We wanted to know the profile of the slope. Then we plotted the contours using software LDSCAD. This is my colleague, Professor Arun. He is surveying using, so we took 2 or 3 sections in this. Now, this is the profile of the surface. Now, top portion is the failure surface. You see this inclined portion. This inclined portion, this is the inclined portion. This is the collapsed soil from the top portion. This inclined portion is the collapsed soil from the top portion, which is just lying at an angle of repose. I'll go back to figure. So the soil which was here originally fell down. Now this is lying at an angle of repose. Now this is the failure surface. This failure surface extends down like this, extends down and come up. Now our issue is the reconstruction of this project. Now, so we wanted to start see now this area, approximately this portion was the boundary of the land, was the boundary of this property, the property of this person. So we had to start constructing, we had to construct retaining wall here. See, total 17 meter. So here soil is loose. We had to further excavate. If you excavate till a hard soil below, this loose soil will again collapse and the existing house will come down. That also will collapse. I repeat, our target is to construct a retaining wall here because this is the boundary of this person's land, right? But now the soil is loose. We have to start constructing from hard soil. So obviously we have to excavate. Once you excavate here in this locality, this soil lying at angle of repose will fall down, will collapse. If this soil collapse, the top soil also will collapse, existing house also will collapse. Now that was our biggest challenge. So this top surface, you can see in this photograph, this is the portion and this is the soil lying at angle of repose below the top portion. Now this is the soil investigation. This is the borehole data, everything. Now you see our design strategy. What we did was, definitely for constructing a new retaining wall, we have to excavate. Now before excavating, we will have to stabilize the slope. Because without stabilizing, if you excavate, this will collapse. So what we did was, first this much portion, we proposed to stabilize using soil nails. First, this much portion we proposed to stabilize using soil nails. Then you must excavate here for just 1 meter. Excavate for 1 meter. Then that 1 meter also you stabilize using soil nails. Then excavate the next 1 meter. That also you must stabilize using soil nails. Like meter by meter, excavation, stabilization, excavation, stabilization. Like that, you must proceed up to the required depth. Once this is stabilized, then we can construct a 3-tiered reinforced soil wall to reclaim the land. So that first, I repeat, first you stabilize this vertical portion. Then 1 meter will excavate, that 1 meter will stabilize. Then the next 1 meter will excavate, that will stabilize. So excavation, stabilization. Alternatively, we will proceed up to required depth. Once you reach up to the required depth of hard, you reach the zone of hard soil. From there, we can construct the retaining wall in 3 stages. A 3-tiered wall. I'll show you the figure. The wall we designed, I'll show. So of course, we did soil investigation. We took 3 boreholes, one at top and 2 at bottom. This is the borehole details. This is the finite element analysis. I'll explain it in detail. Now the design consideration. I think this I explained just now. In the design of soil nails, there are 3 considerations: initial soil nail work considerations, then the preliminary design, and the final design. In the final design, we will design the facing system. Here, facing system was not required because after doing soil nailing, we had to again fill up soil for the retaining wall. So in the initial soil nail work considerations, the parameters are the wall layout. That is, we will finalize or we will fix the height of wall, length of wall, then the slope of soil above the wall, big back slope, then the wall face, the inclination of the wall face. Then we will we will decide upon the spacing, the ranges between 1.25 to 2 meter. But in this project, I took as 1 meter. It can be square pattern, staggered pattern, or irregular. We chose square pattern. Inclination can be between 10 to 20 degrees. We chose 15 degrees. So all this we will choose arbitrarily. These are based on experience. We choose arbitrarily. Then we have to calculate the soil nail length. Then to calculate soil nail length, first we have to decide upon the material. What type of, what is the construction mechanism, whether what type of drilling you are going to do, what is the type of grout you are going to use, what is the solid side. Based on this, we can know the bonding strength. Based on the bond strength, we have to find out the soil, and based on the tensile force coming at each level, we have to find out the diameter, etc. So for a specific drilling method and for soil condition, we have to find out bond strength. So this is available. In literature. I referred a book published by Central Board of Irrigation and Power, which was edited by Dr. G.V. Rao. I will share the details of the book later. Then, based on our conventional principles of soil mechanics, we will find out the tensile force in soil nails at each level. Based on the tensile force, then we will decide upon the diameter of steel bar of soil nail. Based on the force acting and based on the bond strength between soil nail and surrounding soil, we will determine the surface area. From the surface area, we will find out diameter and length of soil nail. So this is the criteria. And now at various, so these are the various depth of soil nail. 0.75 meter, 1.75, 2, 3.75. At various depth, we will find out the axial force. We will just draw the active wedge, and based on we will draw the active pressure diagram. You know, the active earth pressure diagram we will draw. Based on that, we will find out the pressure at each level. Then, based on the diameter of steel bar, we will find out the tensile capacity. That is same throughout. At every level, it is same throughout. Then based on, then you see, I think I'll go to the whiteboard once again. Now see, this is the soil surface, and these are the soil nails at various levels. These are the soil nails at various levels, etc. And you see, this is the active wedge. When the wall moves, this is the active wedge. Now see, in the top soil nail, the soil nail within the active wedge is not effective. Only soil nail behind the wedge is more effective. So now you see, in the top soil nail and all, this length is very less. So the pull-out capacity of this will be minimum. As you go down, the length beyond active wedge increases and pull-out capacity increases. Pull-out capacity will be maximum for the bottommost reinforcement. So that is the concept here. So you see, the pull-out capacity for top is less as you go down and down and down, the pull-out capacity increases. So between tensile capacity and pull-out capacity, whichever is minimum will be the allowable capacity. Between the tensile capacity and pull-out capacity, whichever is minimum is taken as allowable capacity of soil nail at that particular level. Is it clear? So this is how we find out allowable axial force carrying capacity of nail at various levels. Now, in the final design, we have to check for external failure, global stability. Global stability, you have to use software. And here, once you, and the internal failure and all, we can do manually, but global, internal failure, so we can do manually, but global stability, we have to check. And facing design, in this project, facing was not there, because immediately after the soil nail, we had again a retaining wall. So these are the design results. I think my time is coming to end. So I'll go a bit fast. So these are spacing and nails length. So these are design result. This is the material, type of grout, etc. And then we will find out factor of safety based on the axial force developed in and this is the pull-out capacity. This is the nail tensile capacity. This must be safe against both pull-out and tensile. This is the factor safety against pull-out, and this is the factor safety against tension. Based on the pull-out capacity, this the tensile capacity is constant throughout. This is based on the diameter of the steel bar, and this is the force developed. So this capacity divided by axial force will give factor safety. So whether it is factor safety against pull-out or tension or tension, at least we must get a value of 2. So at least we must get a minimum value of 2 throughout. So that is the criteria. So that we got in this project. Now for global stability, we compared with and without soil nails. This is without soil nail, this is with soil nail. So first stage excavation, factor safety 1.607, without soil nail, with it was 1.910. See, this is the result of finite element analysis. Then for the second stage, without nail 1.228, with nail 2.218, with, see, these are soil nails modeled. You can see third stage, without nail, this became less than 1. It became unsafe. With nail, see here, we took a vertical cut. With nail, it was 2.592. You can see you can compare the factor safety. The stage 4, it is 2.746, and this is less than 1 again, without soil nails. So now this is the actual session. So we gave an inclination to add more factor safety. This was a 3-tiered reinforced soil wall with gabion facing. Anyway, I'll come to the details of that. This is a gabion face. So this is a reinforced soil wall. Again, similar, we had to check for external stability, internal stability. External stability is similar to an order retaining wall, sliding, overturning, bearing pressure. Internal stability, we had to check for the tension failure of geogrid and pull-out failure for geogrid. We chose uniaxial geogrid of tensile strength 200 kN/meter, spacing 50 centimeter. Now, yeah, this is to check the pull-out stability. We have to consider various wedges within the soil. So this using Excel, you can do it. So everywhere we got good factor of safety. There was no issues. Now please listen. Now this is the front 3-tiered wall. See here, this is reinforced. For reinforcement, there should be a minimum length. This length should be at least 80% of the height, right? So whereas here the length was less. So as you can see here, see, this is a geogrid reinforcement. Alternate geogrids were fixed to the soil nails. Alternate geogrids, they were fixed to the soil nails using a mechanism of, I'll show you. See, this is a soil nail. It's not clearly visible. There are 2 plates. In between the plate, we will pass the geogrid and we will be bolting it. There are 2 plates. It is not very clear there. As you can see, alternate geogrids are attached to soil. They are anchored to soil nails. Alternate are like the reinforcement. So in the soil nail design, we had to consider the axial force from the geogrid as well. That also was considered as an additional tensile force. And see, these are inside the, see now this line is a steel rod, surrounding portion is ground. These are equalizers, oh sorry, not equalizer. So these are not centralizers, like similar to cover block in an RCC to ensure clear cover. Here to ensure proper cover, we put centralizer to ensure that that's made of PVC to ensure that the reinforcement is exactly at the center of the grout hole. Now this is the modeling. Soil nails were modeled as embedded beam row. This was modeled using Praxis 2D. Soil nails are modeled as embedded beams, and you see alternate. See, you can see these green. See these violet lines. These violet lines. These are geogrid reinforcement. Alternate geogrid at the level of soil nail. Alternate geogrids were they connect gabion wall and they connect the soil nail. They were modeled as node to node anchors. That is the geogrid connecting this soil nail and gabion. They were modeled as node to node anchors. Whereas alternate geogrids, they were modeled as geogrid itself, geogrid reinforcement. These plus and minus are these are the interfaces. Plus is the top interface, negative is the bottom interface. See, these are coinciding. These gray lines are actually interface. They are coming exactly above those anchors. So anchors are not visible in this figure. Once analysis was done, then we can, so the axial force in the nail, we got about 22.4 kilonewton. So 22.4 kilonewton was the actual force in the nail. So that was well within our designed force. These are bending moments in the, actually soil nails are designed only for axial force, not for bending moment, but the bending moment magnitude was very small, because due to small vertical movements, there could be some small side bending, because you know this was attached, this soil nail was attached to the geogrid as well. So some vertical movements in the this front wall may cause shear and bending in this soil nails, but they were very small and negligible. This was the shear force. Even though Praxis shows an excited figure like this, but the values are less. This is the axial force in the geogrid, which you obtained from finite element analysis. Maximum force was 0.446 kilonewton per meter, whereas the strength of the geogrid was more than 200 kilonewton per meter. Of course, in this we go for a very high factor of safety. Now, these are the stresses acting on the geogrid. All these some parameters. Shear stress on the geogrid. These are the displacements of the wall. Only 0.025, just 2.6 centimeter. So these lateral movements were very small. This is for the middle stage, that is 2.3 centimeter, and the top stage was 1.8 centimeter. So all were within permissible limits. But when it came to budget, came a problem. The architect, because again this work, sorry, this work also came to me through that same architect. He said the entire budget must be within 1 crore. It is such a complicated, see, a building, if it is a building project, based on a budget, accordingly you can design a building. You can increase or decrease the plan area, or you can choose upon the type of finishes or the type of materials you use. Based on your budget, you can plan a building. But a geotechnical problem like this, based on your budget, and we cannot do the design. So this became a big fight between myself and the architect. So architect said, this is a government project. I am sure the finance minister will scold you. And architect said that he will not present this before the finance minister. He told me to present it before the finance minister. I went and presented. So till this slide, finance minister was very happy. But when he saw this slide, Do you know what the minister said? He said, "Ayyo," he said. And you know what he said? Mr. Jayamohan, with 2.64 crore rupees, I can purchase another piece of land. I can construct a beautiful house for this lady. Now you are asking this much money just to construct a compound wall. Do you think minister? So the minister said, see, with the 2.64 crore rupees, I can buy another piece of land in Trivandrum, and I can construct a house also. This just for the reconstruction of a wall, you are asking this money. I said, I agree with you. But if you do that, if you abandon this project, and if you buy another piece of land, if you construct a house, this lady may be happy. But in year after year, as monsoons come and go, this more and more soil will collapse. This failure surface will further expand. Then this house will collapse. Then this threat will get transferred to the neighbors. The people who stay again further uphill, then this danger will go to them. At some point of time, definitely you have to address this problem. Later, this may grow into a geological issue. So now you must arrest it now. Then immediately government agreed. When I said that, immediately the minister agreed. But unfortunately, they decided to construct this wall, and they wanted to claim this money from the neighbor. Neighbor went to court. It has become a legal issue. Still, the construction has not started. So one more project I'll discuss and we'll wind up. This is a small project. This is rejuvenation of a tank, of a pond. They call it as tank. See, you know, in Trivandrum, the problem we face is during every monsoon, we get, its low-lying areas get flooded. So the flood mitigation activities, they entrusted to the consultancy wing of Indian Railways. It's called as RITES. I think it is railway something. So this is a subsidiary of Indian Railways. I think so. I think it's a subsidiary of Indian Railways. It's a underground organization. They did a study, and as a part of this, of course, this is a big problem. It's a very huge report, and they have done a wonderful study. They have given a lot of good recommendations. But there's a colony in Trivandrum, which is known as Karimadam colony. It's about 6 acres in area, but it's a low-lying area, and there is a pond. This pond got completely filled up. As you can see, there's a lot of vegetation in the pond, a lot of dirt. This pond got silted up. So this is supposed to act as a flood cushion. During flood, waters will come there, water will get stored there. So that some of the flood waters this pond has to absorb. But this got silted up. Now all silted water, vegetation, now it is no longer a water body. People are throwing debris. You can see people are throwing this debris inside and all. So government wanted to remove the silt. Government wanted to remove the silt, desilt it, make it a pond once again. So this RITES made a study, but unfortunately, as per their proposal, they proposed to drive sheet pile walls. They proposed to do the desilting. They proposed to do of course, sheet pile is very attractive when you see. You must drive a sheet pile wall, and the budget was, see, sheet pile is, is it readable? See, can you read this? Is it readable, these lines? Are they readable?
Yes, sir.
See, can you see the budget? 308 lakhs. Almost 3.1 crore was the cost of sheet pile wall alone. Apart from that desilting, so now when the irrigation department wanted to do the execution, this much budget, they were not happy. So they came to me. I asked them how much was the area required. So as per their requirement is about, the area required for the tank is about 70 by 80 meter. Now this area was much more bigger than that. Then I asked them, then why do you need a vertical side? I just suggested a simple solution. Just no sheet pile, just give a stable slope. Just give a stable slope and give a small concrete toe wall, some portion, small RCC slab. These are geogrids, geogrid reinforcement, and for surface protection, Koya geosynthetic. That's all. And these are Cocolog and all. Very soon, I gave them a very simple solution like this. Because just give a stable slope. Because you see, if there is any limitation in area, if this entire area is required, of course, then we may have to go for a sheet pipe. Now there is no limitation. The area is available in plenty. I told them you just provide a stable slope to the banks, reinforce it with Koya geosynthetic for stability. So inside also this is woven Koya geotextile of 700 GSM. GSM means gram per square meter, 12.5 opening size, and the lengths were designed. And the top for surface protection, one layer of woven, one layer of Koya woven geotextile, over that a non-woven geotextile. Over that we will plant grass, a grass called vetiver grass. See, the initial proposal costed 3 crore rupees. This costed hardly 30 lakhs. 30 lakh. The comparison, so savings is 90%. 300 lakhs became 30 lakhs. Sometimes, solutions can be costly. Always please look at the feasibility of solution. Whatever is required only must be given. Unnecessary wastage of money is not recommended. So with this I wind up. I hope I have kept my time. My allotted time was 9 to 11. Now it's 10:50. I think I finished about 10 minutes earlier. I thank all of you for the patient listening. I appreciate the Civil Engineering Department of LBS College of Engineering, Kasaragod, for organizing this wonderful program. I thank Professor Radhika Nair and Dr. Anjali for giving me this opportunity. Thank you all. Thank you for the patient listening. And if you have any queries, so questions are welcome. I am only happy to interact with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Dear participants, you can please unmute and ask any questions you have.
I think I remember seeing some questions in chat box. I'll see once again. One question, sir, if we go for raft, how to make decision between pile and raft? See, decision between pile and raft, that will depend upon settlement. See, because you see, if the possibility of total settlement is less, and if the possibility of differential settlement is more, if the possibility of total settlement is less, and if there is high possibility of differential settlement, then in that case we will go for a raft. If the possibility of total settlement is more, we will go for a pile. If both are there, we go for a combination. Nowadays we have a system of pile raft as well. So, but those, if you go for a pile raft system, you must go for a finite element analysis. That's the only thing. Second question by Miss Rebecca. If a road passes through a highly sinking sand area, what precautions can we take? If the sand area is loose, we have to go for compaction. By doing soil investigation, you must find out the depth of the loose soil zone. Till that depth, you have to compact it. Compaction is must. Otherwise, especially if it is beneath the water table, there's high possible liquefaction. Actually, I didn't know that Professor Jaya did not cover liquefaction. Then I would have covered that, because I am having a lot of slides on liquefaction. Liquefaction is a horrible problem, during ground shaking. See, imagine you are staying in a house. If the soil beneath is having high liquefaction potential, if it is liquefiable, during monsoon, the soil beneath just becomes liquid. The house simply sinks down. As in liquid, soil will start flowing through windows. You will just get buried inside. So that is called liquefaction. It's a horrible problem. So if a problem exists like that, before the construction, you must compact it. You must increase the density, and so that the liquefaction potential is eliminated. That's it. Okay, I am really happy to answer your queries. So please, either you can put your queries in chat box, or you can ask directly.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello. Yes.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I'm Hasini Madekar, College of Engineering, Pune. Now, I just want to know whether there are any constructions for combined pile and raft foundations.
Yes. Because see, actually, that's a new technology. Combined pile, that's called piled raft. That is available, and that is in locations where the possible settlement, both differential and tot settlement, if it is high, then we have to go for that. That is, you see, we will find out the bearing capacity of the raft foundation. That is out of the total load. We will find out the bearing capacity of the raft foundation, and for the remaining load, these piles are designed. But the share of load taken by pile and raft, that must be decided carefully based on the particular case. That must be decided carefully. And it is possible.
Yes. Okay,
I visited College of Engineering in Pune. I think that was in 2015 in IGC.
Okay.
I remember a building and all. A good college.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Any more queries? Again, for Pilra Foundation, I think Professor Dibankar Chowdhury of IIT Bombay is expert, because I once attended his lecture. He designed Pilra for a project in Iraq, I think, for a huge building. I attended his lecture once. So Professor Dibankar Chowdhury of IIT Bombay is expert.
Yes. Actually, he has published one book also on CPRF. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I think there are no more queries, I believe. So thank you all. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, it was an excellent session. You had given the participants a very good idea regarding geotechnical investigation with various case studies for all the consultancy work which you have carried out at LBS ITW. I'm sure all the participants have benefited from this presentation. Thank you very much for your excellent session, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Dear participants, our next session is scheduled at 11:30 a.m. So the next session is a mandatory session. I'm sure you'll find it very interesting. It will be different from the usual routine technical talks which we have been having. So please join for the next session at 11:30 a.m. And at 2:15, we'll have the feedback. And during that session, we'll have the assessment. We'll put the link for the assessment during the feedback session. Thank you very much for attending the session. Thank you. If you have any queries, you can feel free to address it.
Madam, what is the duration of examination?
Ma'am, there are 20. We are planning. We have given 32 questions, of which we'll be considering for 25 only. The marks will be considered for 25 only. Okay. But you may be required to answer all the 32 questions. Okay. Duration 1 hour.
1 hour. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So for feedback, there is you are allotting 15 minutes for feedback and 2:30 to 3:30 examination, like that, or how is it scheduled?
Ma'am, we would like to have a recorded feedback session, maybe half an hour. We'll have
that is that is prior to exam.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Post the feedback session, we'll post the link in the chat box.
Post the feedback section. Okay. Yes, madam. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Namaskar. Yeah.